What's up, everybody? Welcome to Bingetown TV. This is Brian here with Jimmy and Paul, and today we're going to be covering episode 3 of the new Disney Plus series, Moon Knight. And episode 3 brings the story to Egypt. This was the first episode that I had a chance to watch through twice, so my notes are definitely thankful for that. But I also thought that this was the first episode where I felt a little bit confident that I kind of was familiar with the dynamics at play between Steven, Marc, and Khonshu, and I could kind of just take a step back and focus on a little bit of the bigger picture. I feel like the first two episodes were really focused on just the dynamic going on there. Regardless, though, we have some new Egyptian gods entering the play, a couple badass fight sequences, and another, albeit brief, appearance from Mr. Knight.
Mr.
All in
Knight.
all, I'd say it was a solid episode 3. What are we thinking, boys?
Yeah, I thought it was great. Paul, we might as well let you jump in, say what you have to say, because you missed episode 2 and you told me off pod you had some things to say, and I'm dying to hear it. So hit me up here.
I did. I had some technical difficulties, missed out on episode 2, but I was loving your guys' talk about the relationship, about who really had control. Like, is it really Mark's life? And then, Steven was added in later, was Steven around the whole time? Like, I liked you guys talking about that. I wanted to jump in and like give my points when I was listening to the episode, but it sucks not being there. So it's good to be here for this one. I'm absolutely loving it. I thought episode 3 was really throwing us into the world building aspect too. I mean, not only are we now in Egypt, which is sweet, but we got all the other gods and them talking through their avatars at that like council meeting. I thought that was insane. And just a little bit more insight into the gods' powers and abilities
Right.
and what they can do, like what we saw Khonshu do. It was amazing. And I'm so excited to watch episode 4.
Yeah, I agree. I was bringing it up in the last episode that Moon Knight is supposed to be kind of in its own bubble, and it's not gonna correlate to the larger MCU as much, but really it does. This episode especially, because anytime you bring something like gods into the picture, you're talking about gods here.
Mhm.
We probably won't get them too much, and it is probably just fun to have them for this series and for whatever Mark Spector / Steven / Moon Knight is in the future. But anytime you bring in gods, that's a big deal. We have Thor, we have the Eternals, these strong gods that can do crazy things to not just, Mark's world in Egypt. They can control and do things throughout the MCU. And they do say that on Earth, they're just spectating through their avatars, but who knows if that could change at any point. We also got another thing that kind of brings us into the MCU, and that was the talk of Madripoor.
Yes, I loved
We
it.
had the call out for Madripoor. Fat Doves, baby, let's go.
Yeah.
So we had Layla, and makes sense. She works in the black market. So the fact that she would be in Madripoor totally makes sense. And she probably has worked with our girl. And who's our girl?
The power broker.
The power broker. Yeah, she's probably dealt with her at least, whether it's her as the power broker or just her as herself. It's just really cool to have these random drops. I enjoyed everything, like you guys said, about finding out about these avatars and how they work specifically. Khonshu back and forth with Marc and Steven has been good. I didn't expect him to be as big of a character or as important of a character as he is. I kind of thought he would be in the background and kind of just like yelling at him, but they are having conversations. He is moving the plot a lot, so it's enjoyable, and I'm excited to talk about this episode.
So you thought Steven was going to take a back seat since they kind of changed who controlled the body? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, so I was thinking that once we were on the mission, that mostly it would be Marc, and I guess that's right. But I also thought that Khonshu would just mainly be someone in their head, not necessarily always like episode 3. He's chilling there, like they see him standing there a lot, and we did get that in episode 2 plenty. But I didn't think it was going to be as prominent as it was in episode 3.
Yeah, well, that definitely didn't come to fruition. I mean, Steven was, it seemed like he had more influence than I was expecting him to have when he was in the back seat. The fact that he could like kind of overpower his will and even in the middle of fights, just be like, hey,
Take control
stop it. It was
back.
kind of getting annoying a little bit, if I'm being honest, because Marc was just trying to be a badass.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm kind of glad that they're still leaving Steven in the spotlight, and I guess that's kind of the
That's the
charm
way-
of the series and the character, is the fact that, you know, it is two people in the same body, so they might as well flesh that out as much as they can and highlight it.
I like the Steven, you know, like the angel devil thing going on each shoulder. Like he's trying to tell him the right thing to do, but at the same time, it's like, yo, Steven, like, you know, these guys are gonna kill us if we
Yeah.
don't do anything, right?
Yeah.
Like this isn't just like at one point, you know, to jump towards the end of the episode, Steven is finally like takes over control and he's like, Marc, come on, let's just talk to these guys. And all of a sudden he gets like 3 spears in his chest. And he's like, Marc,
Yeah.
take the body. Marc, take the body. It's like, yeah, like, come on, Steven. Like now maybe you understand about like why he needs to actually fight these guys.
And that
It's
that
good.
was pretty funny.
It's good to see them kind of working this situation out, though. It seems like they're becoming more collaborators than they were adversaries at the beginning of the series.
Yeah, and we need to talk about Oscar Isaac because this episode specifically highlights back and forth, especially in the scenes where they're jumping, and it's not as much as it was in episode 1 where he blacks out and wakes up. They did do that, but sometimes it's just he's talking and then he's talking, and it's one to the other, and the accent changes, and it's amazing. Brian, you were talking about how some people were saying they didn't like the accent as much, and Marvel was a little bit hesitant about it. And you were saying you love it. And I can't agree more because it would be so confusing if he had the same accent talking back and forth. But having one accent and him jumping back and forth between Steven and Marc is just amazing on the screen.
Yeah, and I thought instantly of that one scene kind of towards the end of the episode when they're trying to work out the constellations and Layla's like, hey, I think we really need Steven. There's no change in the camera frame or whatever.
Right.
It's just one constant shot of his face. 1 second he's Marc, the other he's Steven, and that's all on Oscar Isaac. It was
So
just
good.
money.
Yeah.
So
Do you
good.
think, like we were talking about how Oscar Isaac actually talked his way into using the accent for the show? Do you think like that was his reasoning, that it's way easier to distinguish between this timid Steven and this like, you know, brutal Marc? He didn't like you guys said, he didn't want the same voice arguing back and forth.
Yeah. I'm sure that they envisioned it like, all right, it's the same accent, but it's just a different inflection on your tone. Like one's timid and one's a badass. But at the same time, that's still tough. That's still really tough to pull off on screen. But having the 2 different accents along with the different inflections, it's just money.
Yeah, he's a beast. I think he was great for this role. I mean, he's making it his own, and it's so lovable.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't agree more. But are we ready to get going on this episode?
Let's do it.
Sir.
All right, so first scene was actually pretty interesting. It is Layla with an unnamed older woman who she clearly seems to know from her past, but she is getting a fake passport made. And it was kind of funny because she was asking her questions as if she was the person in the TSA, like, where's your passport? Are you the person in this picture? Like, you know, what brings you to Egypt, essentially. So I thought that was funny. But we get a little bit of her past. She's from Egypt, but hasn't been there in 10 years. They refer to Egypt as Layla's home. We get her backstory. She deals in the black market, but doesn't consider herself a thief, or a thief rather, because she only steals back what's already been stolen and kind of returns them to their rightful home. And then we hear a little bit about her father, who it seemed died under mysterious circumstances in an archaeological dig. And she says whatever happened in that desert is lost in the sands, yada, yada, yada. It seems like there's a pretty big question mark there.
But we had someone talking about it and talking some shit. Arthur did say that Marc probably had something to do with it, and he reacted like he did, and then he lied later. So that's gonna be a thing.
Oh, definitely, it's gonna be a thing.
Is it confirmed? Well, I don't think they said anything about the father being definitely dead. They just said gone. They insinuated that like he wasn't around anymore.
That's
So
true.
I want to put that out there that he might make an appearance. If he died in
Anytime they say,
archaeological, yeah.
yeah, if it's dead, not here, anything, if
Mhm.
no one's seen it happen, they can come back. But
And
we might get the confirmation that Mark somehow had something to do with his death.
yeah, like in episode 2 when they were getting Steven arresting him, the fake cops, they said like, oh, like the actual Mark Spector, he died on a mission like in Egypt or something like that, like right in front of or at a dig site, I think is what it was. And maybe that's, how the whole thing with Khonshu got started.
Right.
So like I wouldn't be surprised if her father, died at an archaeological dig site and then became the avatar for another one of the gods. Like he could have. What are the chances Layla's dad was in that like council meeting representing somebody else?
That would be cool. I don't know if Mark met him or if that
Yeah,
whole thing
right.
about Mark having anything to do with it would be a
I guess
problem
they're supposed
because
to be married.
yeah, because he would be like, "Hey, what are you doing here in the Pyramid of Giza?" But if he never met him and doesn't know what he would look like, that would be sweet.
Yeah, I'm also not sure if the other Egyptian gods compose themselves in that way. Like, I feel like maybe it's only Khonshu that has to resurrect a dead guy to become an avatar. The other ones seem like they had some, upstanding characters as their
Yeah.
avatars. But yeah, that whole situation of Layla's dad seems clouded in a little bit of mystery. Paul, I completely first thing my mind went to is that dude's still alive. No way he's
Yeah.
not. But now, Jimmy, you're saying maybe, and we're not sure about the timelines, but maybe his disappearance is connected to Mark/Steven's situation and the emergence of Khonshu. Remains to be seen. I'm sure that is going to play out, and we'll get some answers to that soon enough.
Real quick before we move on, one thing I did think about is maybe her father was killed by Arthur by doing the whole scales thing and was like, "Oh, you're a bad person." And then
Okay.
yanked his soul.
Okay. Maybe her father's Arthur. Just kidding.
Maybe, yeah.
She would have recognized him. Totally a joke.
For sure. My other question was, who was this?
He's like, look, he's like, for sure.
the
I'm
fuck
just
you
like,
guys
wait, no, that can't be possible. No, my other question
Bastard.
was, who is this old woman? Because apparently she's the one that taught Layla everything she knows. And I wasn't talking smack on Layla in episode 2's podcast, but I was saying I'm a little bit indifferent about her. I think this was a great episode for Layla, and I actually got a chance to rewatch episode 2. That played back much more favorably in my eyes for her too. I think she's a good character. Jimmy, exactly what you said in the last coverage. Like, she's going to be a great number 2 for our boy Mark.
Yeah.
But who do we think this old woman is?
I don't know. Yeah, she seemed really cool, and I was almost getting like vibes like it was like the mom of the dad, like her grandmother or her aunt or something. Like it's the dad's sister.
Because she knew of the family.
Yeah,
like,
she
their
acted like
relationship.
she's like, oh, this is my pain too, but or she said, I'm missing him too, but it's your pain to deal with, I guess, or something along
Sounded
those lines.
like I was getting the vibe that she was like a family friend / caretaker of Layla, while the dad was away on his digs, whatever.
Something
I'm not
like
sure.
that. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes
I'm not
sense.
sure if she's gonna play a big part or anything, but I thought the character was good and she had a good dialogue with Layla.
She definitely worked in the underground just because of what one she was doing, making her, a fake passport. Honestly, a real passport at that point.
Yeah.
That looked like a real passport.
Yeah.
And she was talking to Layla about Layla's job and about how her job is literally stealing art. Well, stealing stolen art, stealing it back, and maybe keeping some for herself to
Yeah.
sell.
You gotta pay the bills, man.
Yeah. So she definitely works in the underground. Maybe the old lady was partying in Madripoor back in the day.
Hell yeah, she was partying. If I'm her, the actress being cast as, for now we'll call her not necessarily an extra, but like a smaller part, I would be so happy that I'm cast as someone who's working the underground as a passport person, because she could come back at any time when any of our homie superheroes needs a passport. Like obviously this came to fruition for Fat Dubs, other movies where they need things and they need it fast. And we could see her again at some point if she's not a big part of the show. Who knows?
Oh yeah.
She might just be one of those go-to guys. Yeah, I'd be
Yeah.
down for that. I was getting a good vibe from her, so
Yeah, I
I would be
agree.
down to see her again. But moving away from this scene, it kind of takes us to the events that are taking place in Egypt. We get a quick shot of Arthur, who has already made his way over to Egypt with his follower, and they are just in the middle of the desert. Assumedly, they are pursuing Amit's tomb now that they have the compass that leads them to it. But one of his goons comes up and says, "Hey, Marc Spector is in Cairo. We think he's tailing us," which takes us to the next scene, which is Marc streaking across rooftops and trying to chase down some of Arthur's goons. And this was the first fight scene of the episode. I thought it was a really good one, and it highlights that Marc doesn't need that suit to be a badass.
Agreed.
He knows how to take care of himself.
And this is something I want to talk to you guys about, this entire fight scene, because it does go for a little bit longer through a few scenes. We have Marc, and then we have Steven telling him, don't do it. And then he blacks out. And then when he wakes up, people are getting stabbed and killed. Now, we know that in the first part of the fight scene, Marc was not going to do anything to the kid. He stopped his punch and didn't want to hurt him because he's just a kid. Later, he says the same thing about holding him over the edge. But Marc and Steven both said, who was that? When people are dying. Now, Moon Knight is brutal. When he's in the comics, brutal, bloody, gory. Are we thinking that Khonshu can take over at certain times somehow? If maybe Marc and Steven are fighting too much and he could slip in? Or is there a third entity that we don't know yet?
So that's what my mind initially went to, is that Khonshu is just the third party that sometimes can go in, but that doesn't seem consistent with kind of the rules that they're setting up for how the situation is working. So what I'm thinking, Jimmy, is what you just said. Moon Knight in the comics, he's supposed to be this brutal personality. Maybe this third just like vigilante persona is arising just because of their proximity to Khonshu in the suit. Like maybe they're that's all I had to say. Maybe there is just a third, more brutal, like strictly Moon Knight persona that's coming up.
When Arthur was talking to Steven, saying like, "Oh, like is Khonshu here right now?" Like, "Oh, don't worry, he can't do anything. Like, he can only use you."
Exactly.
So I want to say no, like it wasn't Khonshu controlling the body.
Right.
I want to say that it was a third personality, like exactly what you guys are saying. And then I just want to toot my own horn a little bit, because back in episode 1, I was like, hey, maybe there's a third one that Marc is honestly just like the cleanup guy for.
Yeah, there you go. Toot it, bro. Toot it up.
Yeah.
Toot. Let me just say, no.
I just want to see more of this brutal guy's fight, because like we were kind of getting like Steven episodes and we were getting episodes from the perspective of Marc. I hope you get that like third brutal personality episode point of view all the same, because that would be sick. Because that would be the actual fights.
Yeah, that would be the actual Moon Knight brutal fights. Now, the one thing I will say to the defense of it maybe actually being Khonshu is Arthur said Khonshu likes taking broken people, broken minds, or at least weak minds. So maybe a normal avatar or a normal god can't take over an avatar. Or let's say, okay, a normal Khonshu god can't take over an avatar and do things without being given control. But maybe if they're broken, their mind is broken, that has something to do with it. And the fighting between the two of them, or the extra personalities, or the weak mind will let Khonshu in. And it's just another thing about Marc that Khonshu likes for having him as an avatar. Because later in the pyramid, we do get a thing where Khonshu was like, he's not broken, he's fine. And that could just be like, listen to us. We're listen to what we're trying to say. But it could be like, don't make me leave Marc. I like Marc because they're broken and I can slip in sometimes. So I don't know. I kind of agree that there's probably a third entity, but I do think there's a little bit of merit to maybe the broken mind, weak mind thing kind of allows Khonshu in at certain times.
The one last thing I want to say about that is Khonshu is in stone now, at the end of this episode, which was sweet. And I think that's a really cool punishment. I feel like they wouldn't have introduced, this third, who is that, mystery and then seal Khonshu away. And now it's like, now it can't pop up again until Khonshu's back. If
Right.
you're going that way.
Well,
So,
obviously, if he pops up next episode and Khonshu's not saved yet, we know Paul's correct.
Exactly. And that would be cool. I hope his name's something crazy, like with Xavier, like an X.
Nah, I can't.
Steven is normal.
Xavier's taken.
Oh yeah,
Paul.
wait, hold on. Yeah.
We'll
that's
see
a
him in
bad
Doctor
example.
Strange, so stop that, dude.
Yeah, sorry.
Khonshu tells Marc to dangle the kid over the edge, and the kid, to his credit, young kid sticks to his guns, prays Amit. He's dead.
That was wild.
But then Khonshu's just like, oh, I thought he was going to talk.
Yeah.
It's a little bit funny, just, not sorry at all. But then Steven and Marc have it out, like we said. They're just like, yeah, why are you going on this killing spree? That wasn't me. Who was it? But they can't really have time to discuss it. Which would have been great because then we would have gotten our answer. Then Marc just says, Steven, get out of my head. Like, I got to talk to Khonshu. And they start thinking of, okay, we lost all our leads on where Arthur and his people are going. We got to find Amit's tomb and cut him off before he resurrects them, which brings them to the only solution. Marc says, what are all the other gods up to? Why is this all on you, Khonshu? And he's like, well, they don't like to be disturbed, but if we got to do it, we got to do it. So this is where he literally blacks out the moon and turns it into like a manufactured crescent. And that is, it's not him calling the gods. He said it was a sign that was too big for them to miss. So they had to address it if he did that. And sure enough, did you get the name? I thought it was called like the Ennead is what they called the meeting of the Egyptian.
Oh, I didn't get the name.
Gods. Yeah, he name dropped like the name of the meeting. I think it was ENNEAD, Ennead. But he said, when the Ennead is meeting, a portal will present itself wherever you are in the world. And sure enough, the portal presents itself. Marc looks at Khonshu. What? You're not coming with me, bro? He says, oh, I'll be there. Don't you worry. And that's where he goes through this portal and it opens up into the Great Pyramid of Giza. And Steven is fangirling through his little reflective mirror, like, oh my God, we're in the pyramid. I got to chill. But this is where we get our introductions first to the avatars of the Egyptian gods, but then to the Egyptian gods.
Yeah. And Paul, you get any vibes between the goddess of music and Khonshu? When she said he used to like my music back in the day.
There was nothing but smiles from them and total flirting. She was the only one nice to him too. Nice enough to say like, oh, do you even know what's going to happen? And then they're like, oh yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit. It's going to feel weird, but you get used to it. You had no idea Khonshu was going to take over. Like, so exactly right there when, Marc says, oh, are you going to come? Khonshu says, oh, I'll be there. Like, Khonshu, what a dick move. He could have told him exactly what was going to happen, but he doesn't really give a shit. It's kind of funny. But yeah, there's going to be some making out later.
Yeah, and to what you were saying, B-Toms, it's like poking the bear pretty much. Like, they don't want Khonshu to be doing anything in the real world because they're just spectating. And it has to do with what happens to Khonshu later. So he causes the eclipse. They get pissed. Here comes the meeting. The meeting doesn't go well. We'll get into that in a second. And then he knows later when he does what he does is it's going to cause the gods to be like, all right, this dude's done. He's out. Marc, come save me later. But yeah, I thought it was really cool that it was in the Pyramid of Giza.
So
Steven, amazing again, just fanboying. I love it. I love the mirror thing. I love the reflection thing, whether it's Steven or Marc, back and forth. Thought that was awesome. I if I'm going to be completely honest, I didn't expect all the gods to be showing up in this show. I really did.
That escalated it pretty quickly because that's a lot of power coming in. Like, okay, so Khonshu caused the lunar eclipse, right? That's what that was. That makes sense because, he's Khonshu, the moon god. Right. I think, hence why he can change the night back later on in the episode, which is sweet. I like how they're putting limits on the like moon god, or not moon gods, the gods' powers. So I wanted to kind of write them all down and keep track, but we didn't get a whole lot. So I'm hoping to give us more.
I didn't get any that I recognized, to be honest. And did you?
Yeah. So if you had the subtitles on it, she was pronouncing them differently than I've heard them. It was Horus, Isis, Tefnut, Osiris, and Hathor. And the only one of those that I haven't heard of is Hathor.
Okay, I knew
but
3 out of the 5 of those.
Horus,
actually, so-
Isis, and Osiris are
yeah,
3 of the biggest
yeah,
Egyptian gods, I think,
yeah.
just
Okay.
in terms of their names. And it seems like there is absolutely no love lost between them and Khonshu. They tell him
Right.
straight up, bro, last time we met here, we banished your ass. And he said for nearly exposing us. So who knows what Khonshu did there. Plus, I just said, we don't like your garishness. Like, you're too bold for us. We don't operate the same way you do. Not only did we banish you, but we don't like you, dude.
Yeah.
He
You're
also
a piece
just
of shit, bro.
screams during the meeting through Marc.
Oh my
he doesn't
God.
like talk like normal.
So
Just, like,
awkward. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And Paul, I have an important question to ask you. You were talking about the lunar eclipse. Have you ever seen the sun and the moon in the same place?
No. Do you
They're
think they're the same person? Oh my God.
Oh my gosh, little Family Guy for you.
I didn't know, but I just assumed it was a Family Guy reference with you too.
Is it on? Okay, now plug it in.
Plug it in. Say Mr. 3000 on top. All right.
All right. Love you too. Bye-bye. Yeah, but now I can't think. I'm only thinking about fucking Family Guy.
Yeah, but him screaming when he's trying to talk, and like they're all taking over and just talking normal, and Khonshu's like, screaming. It's hilarious. Another thing that they're asking Oscar Isaac to do as an actor.
Yeah, ridiculous. I couldn't imagine acting those scenes and just like mouthing the words for Khonshu.
Yeah.
But so right when Khonshu appears through Marc, he kind of has it out with the gods separate from the issue with Arthur. He says that they abandoned humanity and that he's the only one, saying they need the godly fist. They can't do it themselves. They need our muscle to back them to carry out justice or whatever. And then the gods, who was the leader? I think Osiris was kind of the guy in the suit that was speaking for the meeting. But he said, no. It was humanity that abandoned us. Like, we are pretty content, like you said, Jimmy, being spectators and operating through our avatars. That is plenty for us to carry out our wills, should we say. But at that point, they say, that's not the topic at hand. Let's get to the topic at hand. And Khonshu starts to accuse Arthur Harrow of conspiracy to resurrect Amit, which Osiris is immediately like, yo, bro, you can't just be throwing that accusation around. That's a heavy one.
Yeah.
And they say, well, why don't we bring in the accused and enter Arthur Harrow, who actually, when the eclipse happened, he looked up and said, oh, you're getting desperate, old bird. And he said, I'm about to be summoned. So he knew this was going to happen, which is a nice tip of the cap to Arthur knows what's going on. He's a pretty smart, savvy guy.
I was going to say there's something about Arthur's nonchalance about everything that's going on, even though that Marc and Khonshu are making moves. He's so calm that makes him terrifying. And like he genuinely does think he's the good guy. Like, oh, exactly what you're saying. Like, oh, you're getting desperate. Like, you're just watching the sky roll back, or like watching a lunar eclipse come out of nowhere, and you're just like completely calm. He's a terrifying dude.
There's something about Arthur that there has to be a little bit more than what he already is. Just because you're the former Avatar, we can speculate in a little bit when we get to the scene where Khonshu actually is turned into stone, but he's having a conversation with another god very nonchalantly, like you're saying, Paul, where why would they bring him back for this conversation just because he's the prior Avatar? But we'll get into that in a second. I just want to say these gods are pretty shitty. Because if there's, I guess when they say they speculate through their avatar, that means they can only see what their avatar sees or something. But if you're a god, I would feel like you could just like see what's going on. And you could obviously see that Arthur is doing what he's doing. And he's just like, yo, no, I'm not.
I was thinking that too. And then they go on to make the point that even the gods don't know where Amit's tomb is buried.
Right.
So it's not like they can go check up on it. And
but you should be able to see what he's doing.
You should be able to check up on Arthur Harrow and be like, why is this guy bringing all his followers to the middle of this desert in Egypt? And he's got the scarab that supposedly points directly to Amit's tomb.
Nah, he's outwardly clean. And he's outwardly doing Amit's bidding. Using the cane, and he talks to people about Amit a lot. It's
and
weird.
You just sent a teleporter to get him to the council in Giza. You sent him a teleporter literally in Egypt, like right next to Amit's tomb.
And I mean, I guess the way that he does get away with it is kind of criticizing that Khonshu is an unreliable source of information and saying, look at his avatar. His avatar doesn't even know what his own name is, yada, yada, yada. So he rips down
attacking the speaker to just like ruin his argument, basically.
Rips down all the credibility of Khonshu, which the gods eat up because I guess with their prior history, they were looking for a reason to doubt Khonshu. Anyway, Arthur Harrow walks in, calm, cool, collected, expecting all this, and they bought it hook, line, and sinker. So I agree with you, Jimmy. If they're supposed to be all-knowing gods, like they should be able to just be like, what's Harrow up to? Like, he's looking for Amit's tomb. Screw this guy. But they bought the lie, so I guess Arthur is off the hook.
The only thing that I could think of is this is exactly the point of Khonshu, with Khonshu saying you're not taking part in humanity, and they're saying, we're fine speculating or spectating through our avatar. So maybe it is the fact that they're just like, we don't give a shit, do your freaking thing, and they're just laying back, eating some grapes on their throne and doing the damn thing.
It seems like a lot of paperwork to deal with the whole thing. Just fine with not doing it.
But to continue with this scene, Arthur says, Khonshu is abusing this man the same way that he abused me back when I was his avatar. At this point, Osiris says, well, let us speak to Marc Spector. What was the exact question? Do you feel unwell is what it was. Right. And he says, yes, I am unwell, but that doesn't change that what Arthur is doing is wrong, essentially. Khonshu's screwing me up, but like Arthur's still the bad guy here.
And they're asking him back and forth between, do you believe in Khonshu? Do you like Khonshu? And he's like, I'm not on trial here, me versus Khonshu. This is Arthur. That's the problem. But they don't believe anything he's saying.
Yeah. So did you guys notice like the empty seats in the pyramid? You're kind of paying through.
Well, they do say later that some of the gods have been turned to stone, just like Khonshu. So
that's what I was gonna ask. Assuming, do you think some died, or do you think they got imprisoned, or Amit obviously that's in prison, so there's an empty chair right there.
Where's Anubis how many there are?
Yeah.
To say, I did not notice the chairs, but some turned to stone, some I don't know, maybe they had other shit going on, who knows.
They're busy,
but
too busy to show up.
Super busy.
But essentially Osiris hears both sides and he says, well, as of right now, Arthur's done nothing wrong yet, so meeting adjourned. You're shit out of luck, Khonshu. And all the avatars and their gods leave, but it does leave Hathor's avatar Astil? It leaves Hathor's avatar to speak to Marc, Khonshu's avatar, and clearly she seems to be an ally right here. Maybe that's because of the past connection between Khonshu and her god, who knows, but she's trying to help Marc out, gives him an alternate path to potentially find Amit's tomb. And she says there was this Magi Senfu way back in the day. He was the only one that was told the location of the tomb. He's long gone by now, but if you are able to locate his sarcophagus, that's probably your best bet for a clue towards where Amit's tomb is. And she says the last time the sarcophagus was seen was when it was sold on the black market. So there's your lead. And don't we know someone who works on the black market trying to find Egyptian relics?
Yeah, I think we do.
Isn't he like married to her?
Yeah,
Lily? Was her name Lily or something?
I think he's married to her.
Pretty convenient, but the balls on this guy. He walks right into Cairo Village Square, goes
right
to this
after
goes to this fruit vendor, and he's just like, hey, I'm looking for Senfu's tomb. This guy's like, Senfu's tomb? What the hell are you talking about? But luckily, Layla's right there. He's just like, are you kidding me, bro? Like, let's do this.
It is funny because she's like, you asked the right question. You asked the right guy, but you're not Egyptian. You're sketchy as shit, man. And it's like you said, the whole town square is effed up because of him. And he's wearing a black hat, like the typical, like we said, Chris Evans as Captain America, and Bucky when he's wearing the hat. It's like, oh, now I'm disguised. It's Clark Kent with his glasses on. Yeah. But it's all good. He's there. We finally get Layla back into the picture. They're going to be a team again. Now she knows, confirmed, there's something going on with Marc and Steven. And to our question in episode 2, she had no idea. No idea about Steven.
Yeah, they get that, that boat scene where they're
Having
kind
a
of
little party boat.
talking everything. Yeah, seems like everybody else is having a lot better time than they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, they kind of get a little bit of I don't want to say answers. Layla didn't really get answers, but she was kind of getting a little bit more truth of the matter. And if I was her, like, she picked up on the Steven thing right away too. A lot of the time she's like, we need Steven, just get him back out here.
Right.
Which is really cool to think about, because before we were like, get Marc, get the fighter.
Right.
And now we're like, oh, get the fucking nerd guy. He's the one that can help.
Yeah, get the nerd guy.
Yeah, you need him, man. It's cool. It's cool how we have Marc the badass and Steven knows all of the Egyptian, everything that they need when it comes to that kind of stuff. So back and forth, just like we said. They're not fully homies yet, but they're working on it. They're working on their issues.
To jump forward, when they're actually at the sarcophagus, they're kind of like yelling at each other in the pyramid display room, whatever that was. That was funny. And Layla's like, oh, he just needs a minute in front of the coffin and sarcophagus, and he looks and he's like freaking out by himself. Oh, he's just praying.
He's just praying. And I actually need to do a double take there, because this is the first time, and you already said it, Paul. They're walking together, and the person that Layla knows, the head of this whole operation, he asks why, and only wants to talk to Steven or Marc. He asks why he wants to deal, this, to see the sarcophagus, to buy it off him, whatever it is. Why
he traveled all the way out there.
Yeah. And Marc hilariously is like, I don't freaking know, man. And Layla says, bring Steven out. That was the first time it's been said. And I was like, whoa, let me rewind here. Was that Steven? Did I hear her say it wrong? So finally it's Marc out, and Steven is being asked for by someone that's not Marc.
Yeah. And I guess to rewind a little bit, this is one of Layla's old connections. His name is Anton Mogart. He just seems like this ridiculously wealthy guy. They walk onto this beach, and he has a full-on jousting setup, set up there. And Marc asks, so this guy's rich enough to just have a jousting setup in his backyard? She's just like, no, he's rich enough to have like a professional come in, the best teacher in the world, and give him a private lesson in his backyard. Like, that's how rich this guy is.
He's nuts. He's a really cool character. And he was the manager report guy, which he looks exactly like he would be slinging under the counter for manager report.
They're not homies right now, Layla and Anton. They're not. They're not on the best of terms. He does openly welcome her at first.
He's got a crush on her.
Yeah, definitely. He's not happy with Marc being there when she says husband.
Yeah, it doesn't shake his hand. That was
right.
Funny.
But you
Kisses
could tell
her hand.
yeah. But you could tell shit hits the fan way quicker than it normally would if there was any trust. He had no trust in her. So.
And that's all it is. When they go in to observe the sarcophagus, they only get the 5 minutes before the security guard back comes up with a gun. Like, what are you doing, dude? And Marc real quick disarms him and points it back, but Layla's been compromised, so he just has to surrender. And how did they get out of that? Actually, is that when Arthur shows up?
Yeah.
So right. Yeah, glass feet. Well, by the way, speaking of glass feet, you guys noticed, right? This episode, they were highlighting it majorly. You could hear the glass breaking every time he walked. I didn't notice it as much in episode 2, but episode 3, this episode, when he's walking, you can hear the crunching every time he's walking.
He does go gingerly with the cane too. So.
But yeah, so the thing we kind of missed is the point is that Layla wants Steven because Steven's the one that can actually help in this scenario. Marc says, fat chance, bro, not happening. He's not coming out. I'm not giving it up. So he's praying and they're arguing, and it's Steven that's in the reflection who's saying, all right, fold this here, fold that there. I think we're going to be able to figure this out. And of course, if you're Marc and you're touching the sarcophagus
Yeah.
like that, they're gonna be like, "What the hell are you doing, dude?"
Yeah.
But like you said, he disarms them, and then Arthur shows up. We have a third party that's interested, and that's why it kind of breaks up the situation.
Shows him a little bit of Amit's power.
Yeah,
What did he do exactly?
he basically blew up the sarcophagus. So I'm wondering how he figured out how to get it back the map back into a star. But
I was like, dude, like, you just walk in, blow up the sarcophagus of this ancient ruin, and say you're welcome. Like, if you want some more, you know where to find me. It's like, what?
I didn't get that at all. Yeah, why would like Anton not just turn the guns on him for coming in, blowing up the spot? But he seemed to be like, I don't even know. He seemed to be offering his powers or services to Anton. Like, look at what I can do. You want me in your corner rather than oppose. So like, and I guess he blew up the or he intended to blow up the tomb so that nobody else could Excuse me.
100%.
He blew up the sarcophagus so that nobody else could locate the tomb, but apparently everything except for the 3 cloth pieces that they needed. A little sketchy there if I'm nitpicking.
But it was shredded, so they had to work with it. But yeah, it the way that they showed it, it looked like it should have just been incinerated with everything else. So it was a little sketchy.
Anton, one thing I did like about him is when Layla kind of first got there, he was saying, like, I take my responsibility to preserve this history very seriously.
Yeah.
And of course, like, Arthur comes in and blows it up.
Yeah.
But like, it does make more sense of why Anton would want to follow Arthur, because, Anton actually really does care about what he is protecting, what he thinks he's protecting. But again, it's like, bro, you just blew up like one of my most prized possessions. What the fuck?
Yeah, and he shows him the cane, and he says, like, this is an artifact, and it's one of the, and he basically is almost saying, like, there's more, and I'll get you some more.
He's giving him proof of concept.
Yeah, 100%.
And the one thing I was thinking about, episode 2, how they didn't see not the dogs. What's their actual name? Jackal.
The Jackal.
That's another Family Guy thing. Jackal. Jackal the first time. What the fuck would it be Jackal the third?
God.
But maybe he didn't summon a jackal or something like that because, as we know, normal people can't see it. So Anton would be like, yo, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah, good call. Good call.
I think, like we were talking about, like what you guys were talking about, you need to be an avatar to have the sight. Arthur doesn't have the sight anymore. And that was like another question. Like, we don't really know Arthur's main goal. Like, he always says he wants to bring back Amit, but is that because, do you think he misses being an avatar? Do you think he misses having that sight and he wants to become Amit's avatar? Or do you think he like fully believes in everything Amit was saying about creating a heaven on earth?
I think he buys into it, if I'm being honest. And I made the point that I said this on the last episode, like, people do use walking across glass. Like, that's an actual spiritual thing. The fact that he's doing it closed off in his own shoes and nobody else can see that he's doing that kind of leads me, and I think it's supposed to lead the audience to believe that, like, he's not doing that for show. He actually buys into what he preaches to. So I think he buys into bringing Amit back because he genuinely believes that she can purge the world of all evil people and create heaven on earth.
Agreed.
I think he's in. And also, he has no love lost for Khonshu or the gods, I don't think. So I don't think he's rushing to get that sight back.
Yeah, agreed.
And that's where I stand.
Yeah, I pretty much agree 100% with what you're saying. My confusion is, if you resurrect her, does that mean that she's just another god like the other gods so that she can have an avatar as well? Or is there something different about resurrecting her where
Arthur's going to get in there, so they're going to see a little stone statue just like Khonshu got trapped in?
That's what I'm saying. It's got to be something like that. And then I would assume that
she goes back to normal, has an avatar.
Goes back to normal and can, see, I don't know, because Arthur said that Khonshu can't do anything, and meaning to the outside, to the outside world, unless it's through his avatar. And I'm wondering if that's every single god. I guess that's true. But through with Amit, then that I guess that would mean that she would take Arthur as her avatar to do what she needs to do. I don't know.
It kind of seems like the other gods are operating through their avatars by choice. And then I kind of connected the dots that they took that ability to choose away from Khonshu because he was abusing it. And I'm assuming that since all of them they seem to be afraid of Amit being resurrected, that she would not be barred down by having to operate through an avatar. So I think if she gets resurrected, we're going to be dealing with full-blown god off the rails.
Okay, yeah. So I'm guessing here that Khonshu is a god, but they do say that he's pretty much excommunicated or whatever. So I think that's a great point that you said there, Brian. So that's probably his punishment is that, yeah, you could still have an avatar. Yeah, you're still a god, but you're not going to be able to do what you did because you almost exposed us last time.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the fine points of his banishment are. That's another thing. We might just have to wait and see. Yeah. It's like I'm not sure where the gods operate when they're not like in control of their avatars. So maybe it was a banishment of Khonshu from their little secret club operating, and maybe like he can only do anything and command any sort of influence through his avatar. I'm really not sure.
Right.
But this is all just theorizing, so I think it might just be best to table that one for a later discussion. Bringing us back to the episode, sarcophagus is destroyed, and right when Arthur shows up, Khonshu is telling Marc, bro, time to suit up, get that suit on, we got to make moves. Because Khonshu knows that if they lose the sarcophagus, then they lose their lead or lead on Amit's tomb's location. Sarcophagus blows up, and no sooner than it does, everyone's like, oh, Marc's gone. And then we get this awesome shot of Moon Knight on the top of the pyramid display, whatever. And then he just like jumps down, awesome cape, like full-blown crescent moon.
Yep.
I love the suit. Like the superhero Moon Knight or the vigilante Moon Knight is a badass, and he looks good.
Agreed.
Yeah, he does, and his powers are sweet. We got the one line from Khonshu before he got like imprisoned in stone, like, "Oh, what would you be without my healing suit?" So, like, as we know, it helps him heal. Hence, why he didn't die.
When he was impaled.
So it's cool that he's on, because that's like pretty high power. Like high level power to be able to fucking just basically be immortal. That's like fucking
you're like Thor too, like almost. I mean, you're probably on the level where it's like Thor, then you as in Moon Knight, then and then obviously our humans with superhuman abilities,
like Cap.
Maybe Cap, Bucky, things like that, and then we have obviously like Black Widow's Falcon / Cap.
So I was gonna say new Cap,
yeah.
I don't want to have a discussion about this, but who wins in a fight straight up, Moon Knight or Captain America?
Oh,
just
gosh,
right off the dome. No discussion.
Okay. And we're talking MCU, right?
Yes.
So he gets the hammer.
No. He's saying, oh,
no,
Cap
no hammer for Cap. He gets the shield.
Okay.
Cap gets the shield, no hammer.
I don't know, man. I gotta see some. I want to say Moon Knight off the top of my head, just because he literally can't die if he has that suit. I don't know what the limits to that is. If he like can't hold the suit for more than like an hour or something at a time.
Listen, I would say Marc's Moon Knight with the CIA training would probably beat him, especially considering it's a healing suit. So I feel like Cap wouldn't be able to do damage.
But Cap could do this all day. Do you think Moon Knight?
And he's got America's ass. So
that's the truth.
Yeah, let me just say that I feel like the MCU would figure out a way for Cap to win, but I would believe in this scenario that I agree. I don't see how Cap actually could. They both have this superhuman or strength. Cap can heal a little bit, but not necessarily heal, but he doesn't get hurt as easily. But Moon Knight is just straight up like superhuman strength, jumping far. I can heal myself being impaled by three spears. Like, I don't see how Moon Knight loses, as long as it's Marc and as long as he is in full control.
without the healing abilities of the suit, I think that would be a really good fight to watch.
that would be
And I
cool.
think I want to leave it there because there is
Yeah.
no right or wrong answer to this. So the fight happens, and it's a really cool setting for the fight because, like I just said, there's this whole jousting arena. There's like fully armored people on horses and stuff. Like, it looks pretty cool.
Yeah.
Layla was holding her own, right? She was.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Layla gets a one-on-one with the head of security, Beck, who, you know, that dude can take care of himself. And the fact that she could go toe-to-toe with him means that, well, not go toe-to-toe. She beat him in single combat. So
she killed him.
She did. She fucking
double
killed him,
freaking spike to the chest from her sweet necklace that she had
her
on.
Collar.
Holy
dude, what's
man.
with all these archaeologists being badasses like Indiana Jones? Like, you get a real life archaeologist. We're not gonna be doing these
freaking nerds, dude.
Yeah, adventures. But yeah, she was impressing me with how much she could actually fight and stuff like that. And I guess that's like her whole raised on a dig site, like growing up tough backstory that we got in a little bit in the beginning. But
yeah, and I'm sure she got some training when she knew she was going to be working the black market. But this is one of the first times in a long time in the MCU, and maybe it is setting a precedent. I would obviously have to go back, but she straight killed him. A protagonist straight took 2 daggers, whatever you want to call them, and stabbed him in the chest and killed him. That's the Moon Knight. Yeah, that's the Moon Knight scenario. That's what people were asking for. Not necessarily as bloody as people were asking for, but she straight killed a guy, and she's a protagonist.
As long as I get those sorts of scenes, I don't care if it's like overly bloody or anything like that. Like in episode 2, when he impaled the jackal on that church spire, like that was enough for the MCU for me. Like, personally, that satisfies my quench for like goriness.
Yeah. And we've obviously okay. Let me hear first.
Who would fight? Layla or Sharon? Sharon Carter.
Sharon, 100%.
Give me Sharon.
Yeah.
She's a Skrull.
Is she a Skrull? Yeah.
That's right.
But I do want to say, though, that obviously in the MCU, we've seen people shoot guns. You know, Cap has taken a gun and shooting stuff. But there's a difference when you're, especially in the MCU, where you're having superheroes and you're disarming someone and maybe shooting guns at them, or you're Sharon and you're shooting, and we end up finding the heel turn from Sharon anyway. But a protagonist straight taking 2 daggers to somebody's chest, that's a little bit different. And that's going to that next level. And that's what we asked for. And we'll get that hopefully for Daredevil, Blade, Punisher, all of that coming up.
Like good stuff.
Hell yeah, man. So Layla is scrapping it up with Beck. Marc is scrapping it up with the bodyguards. But Marc starts getting distracted by Steven again, saying, Steven, don't finish him. Don't do it. Don't do it. And we get another one of these blackouts. And when the scene comes to, we have Moon Knight and, you know, all suited up in his white suit saying, all right, everybody, let's just chill out for a second. And then a second lance just comes out of nowhere through his back. He's like, all right. Take it back, Marc. Take it back. Take it back.
I love how it's Steven. He's like, chill the F out, guys.
Dude's such a dork, and I love it.
But I do want to bring up the fact that people are a little upset with Mr. Knight. I think they're doing it fine. Like, I think it's comedy and it's fine. But Mr. Knight in the comics is another scenario where Marc, he's still Marc, and he's using this suit as a way to look like a superhero, a more respectable superhero to the audience. He looks like a badass. He's still a badass, but the show is making it like, all right, it's the comedic relief. When it's Steven, he turns into the suit, and he is comedy. He's not a fighter.
So Mr. Knight is in the comics, could still be badass.
Yeah, he's the same dude. It's still Moon Knight. It's just I'm wearing something different, and I could still mess you up.
I like that they I like that they
me.
involved it, like, or they just put it in, even if it isn't Mr. Knight being a badass, just because it's just another suit.
I just like that Marc and Steven, their suit manifests differently because their personalities are such a stark contrast from each other. It makes sense that their suits would reflect that.
And again, going back to the comics, this isn't supernatural. You know, Marc wears the vigilante cape and Kevlar vest and all this stuff when he's Moon Knight. He specifically chooses, hey, I'm going to put on a white suit and a white mask and look like a superhero. It makes sense for the show. Just like you said, Marc would have one suit and Steven would have another because it's supernatural. It's not a choice to let me go buy this stuff and make my suit.
Yeah, I wonder what the extent of Khonshu's powers are, because like when they do summon the suit, they do summon some weapons as well. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, like can they summon any weapon? Is it just like there's a certain limit? Because that
Well,
would be
Brian
sweet.
had that question in episode 2 as well. Like, what's the limit on this here?
What they can manifest,
Yeah.
period. Like, could they just,
Summon a jackal.
I don't know, a ladder or something? If
Yeah.
they need a
ladder.
ladder. That was
Yeah.
such a lame example because they can jump
They
a
can
million
jump
feet
high.
high. But like, could they? It doesn't work like that. Certainly with the weapons, because when he
Yeah.
first put on the suit, he was like, "Oh, what are these two rods?" So that
Mm.
I'm agreeing with that question, Paul.
Yeah.
But bringing us back, Layla takes care of Beck, takes the cloth from the sarcophagus, and then goes to try and help Marc, who Marc is able to help himself. I mean, come on now, which he does. But then Anton is on a horse and is trying to run down Layla. Marc swoops in, saves her at the last second, and then flings one of his moon knives. We have Moon Knight, and he
okay, I
throws
see
a
what you
Moon
did there.
Knight. Yeah, Knife. But he nails Anton in the back. That's an off-screen death. I don't think that's
Is
the
it a
last
death?
we're gonna. That's what I'm saying. It's an
Yeah.
off-screen death.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the last we're gonna see of Anton. I think
Yeah.
he's just our token rich person with a million resources that will probably align himself with Arthur now.
Yep. And I do want to bring up, we forgot about this, but early when he summons the suit and they're shooting all the bullets and he saves Layla with the
Yes.
cape, and it's
That
like a
was sweet.
shield, it's like the Batman cape, and then he holds the bullets and then shoots them all back out. Freaking badass. Love
Shot
it.
him back out. I
Yep.
did not know that he was going to be able to do that. No, that was really cool, actually.
Badass.
Forgot about that.
Mm-hmm.
He is badass.
Okay, so now that we've kind of dealt with all the bodyguards and the goons, Layla and Marc share a car. I wrote home, but they're not home. So to the apartment, wherever, to a safe place in the desert, I guess. Layla kind of starts to question, hey, the one thing we glanced over was that Arthur had these strange insights into both Marc and Layla. Arthur seemed to know what was going on with Layla's dad's mysterious disappearance. And then, like Jimmy said earlier, he was just like, oh, and by the way, Marc knows more than he's letting on to you. I'm not sure if he was saying that those two were related or if there's just another secret overarching about Khonshu and Steven that he's not being entirely truthful for, but he definitely did seem like he was hiding something from Layla.
I mean, and as soon as he says it, Marc's like, he doesn't say it out loud, but he mouths fuck.
But anyway, Layla kind of calls him out in this scene now that they're able to get a beat. And it's just like, hey, by the way, what was all that Arthur was saying about you not being truthful to me? And then Marc is like kind of deflects and just clearly doesn't want to answer it. But Layla then comes like, dude, you're such a secretive guy. You're a former CIA agent. I just found out you have this other personality that you were hiding from me. Like, it seems like every time I figure something out about you, like, it just goes to show how much more I have to find out about you. And I feel like I really don't know you as a person. And Marc's just kind of like, yeah, you're absolutely right in that. You really don't know me as a person because I got a lot of secrets, but that's kind of the nature of the game.
And he puts on a nice white shirt for our boy Moon Knight.
Yes, he does. He was pissed about his jacket. He really liked that.
Yeah, it's a nice jacket. But yeah, now we're getting to the point where they're in the desert, right? And this is another cool scene because Layla's sitting there and Marc is losing his shit because he knows that they just can't figure this out. And Layla's like, all right, let Steven in. Might need to let Steven in.
Yeah.
And I love how he smashed he pulls the mirror off the car and he just like walks over without saying anything to Layla and he throws it down. He's like, fine, take it. And then here comes Steven and he figures that shit out in 2 seconds.
Yes, he does. And this was the scene where I was just like, brilliant acting from Oscar Isaac. One second he's Marc, the other second he's Steven. And I really love seeing Steven, man. He's such a nice guy, very pleasant to be around. The accent is doing it for me, but I love that right when he takes control, he's like giving Layla a history lesson while he's like solving it. Like he's so into it and just nerdy. I think it's just such a good portrayal. I can't say that enough. But they do get to figure out the map and the constellations, but there's another hitch in the road. This Senfu guy was around 2,000 years ago, so the constellations in the cloth map reflect the night sky 2,000 years ago. Stars drift, so they can't just look up now and have it be the same. Which brings us to Khonshu, who said, "Oh, I remember that night. I remember every night." And this really cool scene where Khonshu uses his powers to move the cosmos. He says he can't do it alone, so Marc kind of has to help, or Steven at this point has to help him out. And they're kind of just like moving it. It looked really good. The people in Cairo could see it too, so I'm not sure how that's going to play out. Are they going to wipe everyone's memory of this happening? But they do move the stars back to when they needed it. Layla's got the machine trying to link up the coordinates, and it all works out except for Khonshu, who knew that this was going to have a cost. And while they're trying to finish it up, he gets locked and stoned, like he knew was going to happen. And this was one of the first redeemable decisions I think Khonshu has made. He knew what was going to happen. He knew it had to be done. And he had the balls to say, "Tell Marc to save me when I'm buried in stone," or whatever.
Yeah.
If I was Marc, I would have no inclination to want to save this dude after what he's put me through. But we'll see how it plays out. I'm sure they're probably going to need Khonshu's help again.
Yeah, that's what I was kind of confused because episode 1, episode 2, we're not really sure what Khonshu's deal is. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? He's threatening to use Layla as the new avatar, so like he's getting some bad traits. But then he pretty much just straight up made this sacrifice and was like, "I know what's gonna happen. Tell Marc. Come get me out." So I was like, "Is Khonshu really good?" I mean, like he said, he's the only one actually helping humanity. He says all the other gods actually abandoned humanity. So I'm getting the vibe that even though he's kind of an asshole, this big old bird guy is actually good.
Yeah, and I feel like we are going to have that exact conversation, Brian, that you said, where he's just going to be like, Marc is going to be told by Steven, Khonshu asked you to save him, and he's going to say, "Why the hell would I do that? We're good. We're free now." And then we're going to get to a scenario where he needs the suit, and he needs Khonshu, and then they're going to free him however they can.
Yeah, so that's the other interesting thing is I'm assuming they will not have access to the suit as long as Khonshu is in the stone, right?
Yeah, the suit disappeared. Yeah.
So that is definitely going to hinder them as they attempt to kind of chase after Arthur, especially if they don't have the other gods on their side. Yeah, they're going to be fighting an uphill battle, I think, for these last 3 episodes.
Mm-hmm. And let's just get to the final scene because I want to ask you guys what your opinion is, where we have which god was it, Brian? Was it the main god?
Osiris, I think.
Osiris, yeah. Talking to Arthur about the statue, saying, he forced our hand. Why is Arthur a part of this conversation?
I was just thinking that.
I don't know.
Yeah. So is this god on Arthur's side? Because they said that Amit, they weren't allowed to know where her tomb is because they don't want any of the gods to turn and to let her out. Is one of them on Arthur's side, or is Arthur just being respected right now for what he's done and what he knows? Is this guy bad too? This god, we're having a bad god on the side of Arthur, but whatever it is, it's sketchy that he was even involved. And in the Great Pyramid, again, he had to be portaled in so that this god could be like, "There he is, man. Khonshu's a stone now." And then,
I was thinking that too.
Yeah.
Was that like HR like coming in apologizing for like the slander?
He was mean to you. We fired
Sorry
him.
about that. But look, see what we did? We fired him. We're good.
Yeah.
We took care of it.
Please don't sue us.
Yeah. That's what it felt like.
That's a good point, Jimmy, though. I never really thought that there might be someone on the inside working against the other Egyptian gods, but that would track, and it would also explain why he was so quick to glance over the evidence that Khonshu was presenting. Like, look at this, bro. He's going after Amit's tomb. I'm blind to that. Whatever. Let him go. He hasn't done anything yet.
Right.
That would track. I just don't. I feel like the gods are good and I shouldn't say that. We don't know shit about these Egyptian gods.
It's
very plausible.
It
is bold. It is plausible. I don't know why Arthur would have been invited back for that scene. You're right.
Yeah, and it's bold to have a god become a villain, especially in a scenario like we're having Moon Knight. There's been talk on the Reddit Moon Knight is considered, quote unquote, a street level superhero along the lines of Daredevil, Punisher, Luke Cage,
Mhm.
etc. Now, in the comics, the reason for that is because he literally puts on the suit and he's Batman and he's a human.
Yeah, right.
They're still considering him street level in the MCU, and that's why the people on Reddit are saying, "Why do you consider him that? He is a superhero with superhuman abilities now." It's probably just going to be their reasoning is that he will stick to the street crime, and that's the reason. But when you have a god become a villain in a show where you're saying that Moon Knight is technically a street level superhero, what are we going to kill a god here or something like that? Like, how are we going to stop a god? I understand that Amit could be something because we can stop her resurrection, or maybe she gets resurrected and we somehow reverse it. But to have another god be bad, what are we going to do? Kill him, or just have the other gods encase him in stone? It gets a little bit big. And they did say for the MCU phase 4, bigger, 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 bigger.
Mhm.
But
Off
we already
Earth.
saw that with Eternals and things like that. But it's
Yeah.
bold for Moon Knight.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like, in the comics, it's this dude that stops carjackings and burglaries, and he's like, having conversations with gods at this point. So it's definitely a big tone shift. I think he's up there. Moon Knight's freaking up there, like we said, with freaking Thor and
At this point,
yeah, like Ms. Marvel, Captain Marvel, Ms. Marvel. Never mind.
Miss
sorry.
Marvel's gonna be a show soon.
Yeah,
there is
like
Ms. Marvel.
he's on I feel like Moon Knight is on that level of extraterrestrial power.
Yeah,
But
I wouldn't put
I
him Thor level, but I would put him close because it's either way. When you summon the suit, you're using a god's power.
Yeah.
And are the gods just like when they're not like in their avatars? Are they chilling on Earth? Are they somewhere else?
Not on
we
Earth.
don't
They
really know.
basically said straight up that they're just spectating through the avatar. They're up
I got you.
in the air, eating their grapes and stuff.
And maybe there's the possibility that this is only his power situation for the purposes of this series, and maybe by the end of this season, like Khonshu will be out of the picture, and maybe Marc just continues to hold the mantle, makes his own costume. Him and Steven are this duo crime fighting pair. That would scale him back to street level, but I'm just hypothesizing because you're right. He is not street level right now, but they are labeling him as such. So
damn, that's actually cool. I didn't think about that. That maybe Khonshu actually does leave after this season and he becomes street level and chooses to make his own suit and be a vigilante.
yeah,
I like that. I like that possibility.
Well, okay. Well, I have a little higher vibe section right here. So let's start this off with B-Tom's high vibe. Do you think Moon Knight will have the healing ability in the suit after the show?
That goes along with what I was just saying, honestly, but that would certainly scale him back to that street level status.
I feel like they showed this extra power. I feel like they're gonna bring it back somehow.
You're right. I agree, and I tend to align with that reasoning. So I will say yes, he will continue to have the suit and the powers and the healing.
Yeah. To everyone listening or watching who's not been a part of our What If or Fat Dubs or WandaVision, higher vibe is high. We totally disagree with Paul. He's high as shit. The vibe is we're vibing with you, bro. And I'm going to say I'm vibing with you. I really do like a lot what you said about the possibility of him just being a vigilante at some point and this just being a sweet introduction to him and to Khonshu. And it's like an origin story in the way where Khonshu, yes, he did exist. In the comics, it was always iffy. And it was always, is it his mental illness that caused this? But in this could be an origin story where, yes, Khonshu existed. Yes, we had a season of you having powers. And at the end of it, you learned that maybe Khonshu was right in a way, but you don't have the power for whatever reason, and you choose to become a vigilante / superhero in the future when you're working in New York or wherever with Daredevil, Punisher, Ghost Rider, whatever. But honestly, like you said, Paul, they introduced it. I feel like because they introduced it and it's a thing that they won't get rid of it lightly. So, and people may just be like, all right, so why did you just give us a season of that and then take it right back? You might as well just introduce him as a vigilante. So, I'm vibing with you, but it would be cool.
All right. So this other one, I need a little correction here before I ask. When Steven was on the phone with his mother, was he talking to her or only leaving messages?
Leaving messages, I would say.
So, higher vibe, Steven's mother doesn't exist.
Oh, that's a good one. So, okay. He has talked to her on the phone, and I can't believe we haven't really brought this up ever. Every time he talks to her, he's always leaving a message. And it's always when it's Steven. We've never seen Marc talking to this person. Damn.
Maybe if Steven's personality just came out of nowhere, like Marc died.
I have a feeling that she doesn't exist. Yeah, because Steven really didn't exist. So why would she exist unless it's literally Steven talking to Marc's mom, which wouldn't make sense because he's saying it's Steven. So yeah, I'm vibing with you, bro. You're doing it. You're on a roll.
I'm vibing with that too. This was a really good higher vibe, definitely. But I'm vibing with that. I do not think that the mom exists. I'm starting to lean towards it as Marc's body, and Steven is the one that just kind of showed up. They've done a really good job of not having either of them say anything that would suggest one way or the other.
Not to go too far into it, but like when they did ask Marc if he was sick, they didn't ask Steven. They brought Marc, so it was like it was Marc's body, Marc's personality. But I don't know. You could argue.
No, I mean, there's been some hints. Obviously, the whole Layla thing. You're Marc, and I have no idea Steven existed. Them asking for Marc, not for Steven. It does seem like Marc is, just like the comics, the main person. But we talked about this in episode 1 and 2. It's bold to make Steven so likable because you would want Steven to be the main guy, to be our guy, and then have Marc come out when he wants to be a badass. It's going to be back and forth, just like they're doing. It's going to get better and better where they're actually homies. And it's going to be probably easier for them to communicate where it almost maybe seems 50-50. But at this point, it has to be. I would say it has to be Marc. Steven is there as the mental illness, and maybe the third entity is Jake. Maybe Jake, like in the comics, he's the street guy, getting the rumors, getting the whatever, talking to the people on the streets. Maybe they're just gonna say a situation with like Sylvie where she's not Enchantress, she's not Loki. Oh wait, she is Loki. Maybe Jake is just gonna be used as a name because we know Jake exists in the comics, and he is gonna be that third badass if it's not Khonshu.
Yeah.
He's the one that always goes back and talks to the gold dude, the gold street performer.
Yeah, man.
Jake's informant. Because I did hear you say that that is actual the gold street performer in the comics was his, informant, which is sweet. But, the third personality talk, that'll bring me to my last higher vibe for today. So that when Steven found the phone, it was a bunch of Layla, and then there was one other name.
Duchamp. Yep.
Do you think that the third personality called Duchamp, or is Duchamp like somebody with Marc? So basically, higher vibe. The third personality is the one that called Duchamp.
Oh, okay. So you're not saying that Duchamp is the third personality. You're saying that the third personality called Duchamp.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. That's a vibe because Jimmy, you were saying Duchamp is like a known accomplice to Marc, right? So I feel like it would track that Marc was the one that made that call.
So you're high. You're saying he's high then? Because
I'm saying he's high. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Gotcha.
I think you're high just because of what we know from the comics. I do think that they're just going to keep it as like he's another CIA or military, I guess we could say, partner of Marc, and we'll see him soon because I think the point of the phone was that it was a missed call, just like Layla was all missed calls, not calls made. So I would.
Oh yeah, well, that really throws a dart in that hole.
That's all right, dude. You're two for three, man, and those two were good. Now, before we end the episode, we have to talk about the last scene, and the last scene is Arthur talking to Khonshu, and he asks the god, "Can Khonshu hear?" And he says, "We believe that they can." And he basically starts talking that shit while he knows that Khonshu can't do anything. And the big thing for me was back to my theory from episode 2 of why he's walking on the glass is he admits, he says, "I enjoyed hurting people when I was your avatar. I enjoyed it." and you made me who I am by being who you are, as wrathful and brutal as you are, and you led me to Amit pretty much. So I kind of think that was confirmation that the glass feet are penance for him saying, I freaking liked hurting people, man.
Yeah.
I liked being your avatar, but I understand, like you said, Brian, I understand, and I have bought into Amit, and that's not the right thing. So I'm going to take penance every day for who I am.
Yeah, I was getting that vibe as well, and yeah, just the way you laid that out, it makes sense. You know, here's this guy that went around killing people in the name of a god who abandoned him. Like maybe he does feel horrible and want to, at least by giving himself pain every day, he will never allow himself to forget what he's done.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And that I think that's just further support for kind of how we were talking about it on the last episode. So we already came to that conclusion kind of, but I think this has given us more evidence of that being true. I don't have anything else for this episode. If you guys are good to wrap it up, awesome. We're going to be covering Moon Knight's first season in its entirety with weekly discussions after the episodes drop. And if this is your first time listening or watching our podcast, welcome. And be sure to check out our previous series on WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, and just a ton of other shows. As always, if you like what you heard, give Bingetown TV a follow on Twitter and Instagram, visit us on BingetownTV.com, and subscribe to our show on Spotify, YouTube, the Apple Podcast app, or wherever else you may find your podcast. Our Patreon is up and running, so if you want to support the pod, that's a great way to do so, and that can also be found on our website at BingetownTV.com. Once again, we are Bingetown TV, and thanks for listening.